Hit record. All right. Hello. Our group is talking about the competing conflict style, also known as dominating, going by how the book says it. And my name is Anthony.
My name is Logan.
My name is Leela. All right. So, what is the computing conflict style? It is characterized by having the highest level of personal concern for oneself and what they want to. Sorry, I disregarding of what the opposing parties want as long as you get whatever you personally want out of the situation. I was, and then so it uses threats commonly as well as warnings to push towards the desired, outcome and goal that the other parties need or want. It's extremely decisive. Um, it sees conflict as a competitive and a competition to be won rather than any form of compromise or dialogue. So it doesn't want to lose for the most part or at all. Basically a win lose approach. Next slide. What are the advantages of competing? Well, you have the the good decision making. The It helps better your relationships. It can uh, help with the situations that require decisive and quick decision making. And it's extremely useful when you absolutely need to get the result you want out of, a fight or conflict. It demonstrates how important an issue is to you and others, and it shows the level of commitment you have to a conflict or an argument and its resolution. And if it's responded well to by others, it can foster a good dialogue and creative decision making on both ends. It also serves as a higher end, uh, serves as a sign of strength and in contexts where that's important. And when all parties view conflict this way, it can lead to the betterment of everyone involved due to the sense of competition.
All right, the next slide, the disadvantages of competing. There's a lot of disadvantages. The first one starting off with one side always has to lose when this conflict style is used because it is a win-lose approach. Um, when you're using this approach, you're gonna come off as aggressive and combative. The conversation patterns and habits that this style uses can lead to the development of resentment, which can hurt your relationship. Leading to repeated use of this behavior can also cause spiral into an abusive relationship. If neither party is willing to give in to the other, this style doesn't resolve issues, it only leads to continued conflict. So if one person doesn't want to give in, then nothing is going to happen. And is definitely not healthy for longer term relationships due to the strain that it puts on all the parties in the conflict. So if you really care about this relationship, then you can't use competing in it because it's just going to strain the relationship. The next slide, where would this style be used? It can be used in a possibly dangerous situation, such as your child constantly running into the street. You're gonna have to dominate the situation and pull them back to the side. Or if your child's running around the pool, same thing. You're gonna have to dominate the conversation, them telling you that they don't want to stop running. You're gonna have to tell them that they have to, and you're gonna have to pull them to the side because it's a dangerous situation. Also, when you're teaching somebody how to drive, you have to dominate the conversation because they have to listen to you. It's a dangerous situation. There's many lives at risk, and they need to know what's going on. It can also be used when you're making business decisions on a time crunch. Like, for example, if you're working in a group, making a final decision on a product launch when the team is split. If the team is split, then you have to dominate the conversation so that there's an outcome, and also enforcing accountability on a lacking team member. If someone's not holding their weight, then you have to dominate that and get them to get their stuff together. Some other situations are like a judge silencing an outburst in the courtroom. If you're getting taken advantage of in a relationship, you have to stand up for yourself and dominate the conversation so that there's an end that's put to it. Also, if you're a teacher, maybe kicking a student out of the room if they're being too disruptive.
All right. What are some of the times when you shouldn't use the style, maybe? Well, as was sort of addressed earlier, when relationships are important to you, the style generally isn't the way to go. Um, Dominating a conversation, sort of having that competitive nature with the other person, it's not healthy. It is, as was said earlier, sort of a win-lose dynamic. It comes in a place of wanting whatever you're getting at the potential detriment to the other person. If a relationship's important to you, such as with a close friend or possibly significant other, or even like a close family relationship, or talking with a boss or a coworker that you want to have a good standing with, this communication style really isn't the way to go, as opposed to something like collaboration or integration. It generally can come off as hostile and sort of foster a damaging or even potentially abusive relationship dynamic. Otherwise, there's also some situations that shouldn't be broken down into winning and losing. There's a lot of situations, conversationally, a lot of conflicts that are more complex than that. A lot of cases where if you simply look at it as, oh, either I get what I want and I win, or they get what they want and I lose, you're not going to have a good time handling those situations. And a lot of things need to be looked at a lot more delicately and a lot more complexly than that. A lot of things can be more complicated than just one side wins, one side loses, and the stop becomes ineffective in that situation. And lastly, there's sometimes where people won't respond well to head-on conflict. Now, there's a couple different ways that can manifest. Sometimes a person will match your aggressiveness, and when neither side is willing to give in, then this conflict style becomes a stalemate. If neither party is willing to back down until they win, then no decisions get made. But there's also the contrary, where some people will just refuse to engage entirely. There's some people who, when dealt with hostility or force, they'll shut down. They won't respond well. They won't be willing to engage with you, and you won't get what you're looking for out of the situation. Maybe you'll win the argument, so to say, but you won't get that sort of dialogue. You won't get the sort of satisfaction or conclusion you're probably looking for out of a conflict or discussion like this. So, sort of in conclusion, going over everything, competing is a highly aggressive conflict style that's characterized by high personal concern, a lack of concern for the other parties you're dealing with, and oftentimes the use of threats or hostile languages. It makes decisions quicker than a lot of other styles, and it can show dedication to the conflict and potentially lead to everyone involved being more dedicated if you are with a group of people who respond well to this style of conflict. Um, However, it's, as I just said, only useful when someone responds well to it. There's a lot of cases where a competitive or dominating conflict style will damage a relationship, as in a competing conflict style, someone always has to lose. And a lot of times it can even be unproductive when everyone involved in a conflict thinks this way. It is very useful in circumstances where you need to get a result. There's some situations where if you lose or make a compromise and there's no way outside of you winning that you can be happy with the situation, in those cases, this conflict style is really helpful. However, and it's also useful in cases where decisions need to be made quickly. If you are sort of pushing and constantly going forward with trying to get your side in, the decision's going to be made faster, and sometimes conversations need to have someone sort of take control of them, as with the example of people proposing or doing dangerous things. However, there are also circumstances where they shouldn't be used, mainly things that need to be handled delicately or with longer term relationships. If you're talking with, let's say, your best friend or your significant other about a situation where you two agree, it's probably not the best choice to go into this with a mindset of I have to win and I can and they must lose. As opposed to going into a mindset of like, okay, how can both of us get out of this and be happy? What are some changes both of us can make to do well? And what are other things that can be done to make sure everyone involved in this conflict is satisfied, or at least no one is losing completely. And it's those sort of more delicate situations where competing really falls apart. And thank you all very much for, thank you to the people watching for reason. I hope that we were able to teach you something about competing as a conflict style and in discussions with all sorts of different forms of conflict.